Hello to all my hot historians and my fellow truth seekers, whom I like to call Kemetologists. It's your girl, Nefer here to bring you some things to think about, learn, and to go research yourself. Welcome to my channel, where we learn vocabulary to unlock life's mysteries and reveal the world's true history. Today, we'll be discussing my theory of Nefertiti's origins, which will finally confirm the discovery of her mummy. If you haven't already, don't forget to go to barnesandnoble.com and purchase my book, The Son of God in Kemet, and the digital version of the study guide as well. Please remember to only purchase from barnesandnoble.com because other websites pay authors virtually nothing. With each Barnes & Noble purchase, it'll help me get closer to achieving the dream of having my books in store. Be sure to check me out on TikTok and Instagram at Neferu_Neferu_Aten. And don't forget to click that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Let's get started. In 2003, Dr. Joanne Fletcher discovered the mummy of Nefertiti by tracking down a Nubian wig that Nefertiti wore at burial. However, her claims were vehemently denied by the head of antiquities at the time, Dr. Zahi Hawass, even though the mummy looks exactly like what the records show.
A clue overlooked by everyone, except Dr. Joanne Fletcher. She's an expert in a rare field, ancient Egyptian hair. 13 years ago, buried among the treasures of the Cairo Museum, Joanne noticed an ancient wig.
With certain specializations, you do zoom in to quite a close range level. You tend to see things that otherwise tend to get dismissed as trivial. I'm actually drawn to things which other people may have missed.
A wig is like a fingerprint, leading to the time it was made and who it was made for.
What we're actually looking at here is basically the Nubian wig, the Nubian hairstyle, which generally was only worn by royal women between around 1400 and 1300 BC.
Pictorial evidence shows Nefertiti wearing a wig exactly like this one. Could the wig in the museum be hers?
It was one of those little light bulb moments when ding, then you sort of think, no, it's interesting, but no way. And that probably explains why it's taken 13 years to get to this point, because it just seemed so incredible.
So exciting.
Joanne is waiting for Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's leading mummy hunter.
Mummies captured our hearts. They have secret and magic. If you say the word mummy, it turned the eyes of every child and every man, because mummies has magic.
Dr. Harris.
Dr. Hawass's official sanction is essential, and the tomb can't be opened without his say-so.
I'm going to compare what the mummy looks like versus what the records say Nefertiti looked like, in addition to other evidence. Unfortunately, even with the precise matching description, Dr. Fletcher still couldn't prove that it was Nefertiti's mummy beyond a reasonable doubt. But now I can prove her theory using my theory of where Nefertiti came from, which archaeologists still have no idea. They have unsupported ideas, but aren't really sure. In addition to ancient records, my theory is backed by recent genetic testing. Let's get started. Today, we'll briefly discuss the Pharaoh Amenhotep III, his wife and children, the term Great Royal Wife, Thutmose and his sister wife, Princess Isis, and also known as Iset, the Pharaoh Amenhotep IV, renaming his sister wife as his bride, a review of the mummy, genetic testing, the impossibility of this mummy being Kia or another one of Akhenaten's sisters, Victor Leray, Joanne Fletcher, and Zahi Hawass, and the conclusion. And just a quick note, I'll be using the original name for this land and these people, which is Kemet, which is modern day Egypt. Please watch my intro to my channel video to get real details regarding the original name of Egypt. Let's begin by discussing Amenhotep III. He was one of the greatest and one of the wealthiest pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, which is commonly referred to as the New Kingdom. He came to the throne at about 6 years old and was married to Queen T, his great royal wife. Together, they had 2 sons and 5 daughters. Thutmose, Amenhotep, Setamin, aka Setamun, Isis, aka Iset, Akhenaten, Nebita, and Akhenaten. He was actually the first pharaoh to separate the royal family from the Temple of Karnak, formerly known as the Temple of Waset, and to also begin the transition to the worship of Aten. He moved across the Nile and built a new palace and a man-made lake and a royal ship, all named after Aten. To see the full video regarding Amenhotep III and Aten, and the common misconception that Amenhotep III's son, Akhenaten, created a cult, please see my Akhenaten video. Now let's review the term, the Great Royal Wife. This title is only used for the woman who is selected to be crowned as the pharaoh's sole, meaning only queen. This title is given because the first or eldest son of the Great Royal Wife is the son who will take precedence or first place over an elder son by a concubine or lesser wife. This is why the Great Royal Wife was selected, to make it clear whose son will be heir to the throne. The heir to the throne's promotion was also aligned with his marriage to his Great Royal Wife. He was crowned co-regent or pharaoh during the marriage celebration, which lasted about a week long. For Amenhotep III, his one and only Great Royal Wife was Queen T. Many Eurocentric archaeologists like to believe that Amenhotep III promoted 2 of his daughters, Setamin and Isis, to be his great royal wives. However, when they were promoted and their titles changed, they actually had become their brothers' great royal wives when the brothers were promoted to co-regents. I'll go more into detail about both of their marriages later on in the video. Additionally, it's well known that Queen T outlived her husband by at least 2 decades, which means she was indeed his one and only queen and great royal wife. You can see here that based on her mummy that she was definitely an elder at the time of her death. She and Amenhotep III married when they were just children, and he died in his mid to late 40s. And she's at least 70 years old based on the wrinkles of her skin, and also based on the aging of melanated people. And they were the richest people in the world, so they were well taken care of, meaning if she looks 70, then she probably was around 90 when she died. Additionally, you can also see the great royal wife dynamic in the story of Joseph in Genesis. His father, Israel, worked for 14 years for Joseph's mother, Rachel. Israel loved Rachel the most, and she was his primary wife. Rachel's eldest son was Joseph. He was considered heir to the throne because he was his father's firstborn son by his primary wife, Rachel. By the time Joseph was born, his father already had 10 sons and at least 1 daughter. However, Joseph took the place of Reuben, Israel's very first son by a lesser wife, Leah, as soon as he was born. Next, we'll discuss Thutmose, who was the eldest son of Amenhotep III and Queen T. When it became time for him to become the co-regent of Kemet, his parents married him to their daughter, his sister, Sethemet. They did this to keep the royal bloodline strictly Kemetic and strictly within their specific bloodline. Thutmose and Sethemet married in year 30 of Amenhotep III's reign. Their marriage was celebrated by a week-long Hebset festival. And just a quick side note, Amenhotep III didn't celebrate Hebset festivals every 30 years as previously thought. He celebrated them during weddings and marriages. From the time of Amenhotep III to King Tut, there were 4 brother-sister marriages, and King Tut was only his grandson. In year 34 of his father's reign, Thutmose suddenly died, so there was a necessity for a new co-regent. Now, let me introduce you to Isis really quickly. Princess Isis, aka Iset, was the second daughter of Amenhotep III and Queen T. She married her brother Amenhotep in year 34 of their father's reign and became his one and only great royal wife. When Amenhotep saw his bride, Isis, he said Nefertiti, which means the beautiful one has come. And from then on, she was known as Nefertiti. Amenhotep had one great royal wife with 3 names: Isis, Nefertiti, and Nefer-Nefer-Uaten. When Amenhotep IV became saved and changed his name to Akhenaten, he renamed his wife a second time to Nefer-Nefer-Uaten. He also renamed his vizier and his army general. You may think maybe Isis died, then Nefertiti became queen. However, we know that Isis didn't die, then Nefertiti became the next great royal wife because their youngest son, Tutankhaten, who was born late in Akhenaten's reign, was the son of both Amenhotep IV, aka Akhenaten, and Isis based on DNA evidence. And Nefertiti was his queen at this time, according to ancient records. Next, we'll review the mummy of the younger lady of KB 35. The mummy was found in a small cache or room in Amenhotep II's tomb. She is currently known as the younger lady of KB 35, which means King's Valley, tomb number 35.
One chamber was walled up. Do the remains of Nefertiti lie inside?
The wall. The burial chamber. Unreal.
Later, and the hole becomes a window. 3 mummies lie within.
And there they all are. Unbelievable.
Yes, all of them.
Aren't they beautiful?
They are. But the face is very impressive.
The face is so
Isn't
regal,
it?
isn't it? Very
Yeah.
proud face.
Though over 3,000 years old, they're in good condition.
It was absolutely amazing. The 3 bodies were there. The way they laid out, they're almost sitting up.
She was found with Queen T and a young man whom I believe is Smenkhare. She and Akhenaten's, or Nefertiti and Akhenaten's eldest son. I explain why I believe this in a full video called Smenkhare, including how I believe he died as well. Go check that out. Although extremely beautiful, Nefertiti has some other features that she was most known for. She had a bald head and wore a tight band around her head under her heavy crown. She's also known for her long, slim neck and high cheekbones. Nefertiti is also known to have had double piercings in her ear.
Joanne has just 2 hours to identify Lady X as Nefertiti.
She's a real enigma. Now I'm here, literally face to face with this woman. It is so reminiscent of a very famous piece of sculpture.
I mean, purely from a visual point of view, it is a striking similarity.
The long neck is a clue. So is the band mark around the head. Beneath her high crown, Nefertiti's head was shaved, a precaution against lice, disease, and the Egyptian heat.
It's possible that something rather tight-fitting would have been worn, and because there is no natural hair, because it's been removed, it would have made the wearing of a tight-fitting tall crown, for instance. But certainly this individual had something quite tight worn on the head when she was prepared for her burial, the funeral regalia of royalty.
Another distinct feature appears in some depictions of Nefertiti: double ear piercing.
And interestingly enough, the left ear has been pierced not once but twice. I'm not aware of any other examples of doubly pierced ears from pharaonic Egypt.
For Joanne, the double ear piercing is compelling evidence.
When she died, she was the Pharaoh Nefertiti. She would have had to have been buried with her right hand crossing over her heart, holding a royal scepter. This position was reserved for pharaohs only. The left hand was for queens. There's been some debate as to whether this hand actually belongs to Nefertiti because it was broken off after, the tombs were raided. However, the broken arm was CT scanned and compared to the arm still attached to her body, confirming the right arm does indeed belong to the mummy. In addition, you can see her nails on both hands are manicured and shaped the same. Today we would call these square-shaped nails or coffin nails.
Nefertiti sits at her husband's side not as a mere queen, but co-regent, his equal. She is now the most powerful woman on Earth. Joanne begins a close examination of the body. She's joined by Dr. El Magani, a mummy conservationist from the Cairo Museum.
Okay. This really is royal.
Yes,
Beautiful royal linen. Gorgeous. Look how fine that is.
only for the kings.
Only for the kings, exactly. This is wonderful. What's that? What's under there? The fingers. There are some fingers here. Something under there. This could be the missing arm. I don't believe it. This is fantastic. Could I? Oh, it's too exciting. Show you. Oh, look at the dust rising up. I don't believe this. This is the arm that's been missing for nearly 100 years.
It's an extraordinary find. 100 years ago, the mummy was found with a bent right arm. Sometime later, it was replaced with a straight arm.
Oh, fantastic. Pumpkin. It was seen in the 1900s and then no one's seen it since. And it's the right arm, just like the original report said. And it's clutching a scepter, definitely a woman's hand.
Yeah,
And henna again, can you see on the fingernail? Henna.
you know.
So that is tremendously exciting. Can I see if it, Munkin? This is the crowning moment. It really is. If this is this lady's hand. Oh wow! Look. Yeah.
It is position.
That is superb. And this one that doesn't seem to fit, if that was returned to its rightful owner. And we can imagine now, this lady, like this, with the scepter.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fantastic. This is really fantastic.
The newfound limb is a crucial piece of evidence. A bent right arm was the symbol of a pharaoh. The discovery supports the theory that Nefertiti outlived her husband and took the throne herself. A pharaoh in her own right.
We only find this in the art of kings who are buried
with the right arm or both arms like this. Queens have the left, kings have that or that. And that really does speak volumes, because if this right arm does belong to the younger woman, then it is evidence that she wielded incredible powers in her life.
Does the bent right arm belong to Lady X? The team undertakes a series of X-rays to find out.
X-rays.
We can see the break there.
It's a beautifully defined kind of break.
I wonder whether
isn't it?
that, we'll have to do a careful comparison.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Does
do
it
a very
correspond to
careful
the body?
comparison of that.
So it's not only a question of looking at bone density and so forth, but also the way that the arms, both arms, were mummified.
And the question is whether they are similar to the left arm on the body.
No one can say until the X-rays are meticulously analyzed. Confirmation must wait until the team returns to Britain. The expedition's time is up. Joanne may never again get this close to the mummy.
I've established in my own mind certainly that this is a royal woman of the late 18th dynasty, potentially a female pharaoh. She's quite incredible, and I certainly think she could well be the great Queen Nefertiti.
Science has solved some of the mysteries surrounding Lady X.
Nefertiti also wore Nubian wigs. This is how the mummy was actually discovered, by tracking the Nubian wig she wore at burial. You can also see the wig here on her sarcophagus. Lastly, in order for my theory that Isis, sister of Akhenaten, was promoted to great royal wife the same year he was promoted to co-regent, which means he had to marry to become the co-regent. In order for this theory to be correct, this mummy would have to have been Akhenaten's full-blooded sister and the mother of all of his children. And also a lady of at least 30 years old who had had children.
Tut's mother, the younger lady. She's been laid to rest here, back in Cairo, in the treasure trove that is the Egyptian Museum. Here, just a few feet away, are the remains of Akhenaten, Tut's father. When Albert compared his genetic profile with that of the younger lady's, he discovered something shocking.
It's not only that this is the father and this is the mother of King Tut. It turned out that they are brother and sister, which was a big surprise for us.
So Tut's mother and father, so their mother and father, they were also brother and sister. So Tut was a product of incest.
A lot of incest happened. They didn't like to get royal and non-royal blood mixed, so they tried to keep it within the royal family.
So it's official. Comprehensive genetic profiling has proved that Tut's parents were brother and sister.
And the CT scan conducted in 2003 also confirmed she did indeed have children, and she was within the mummy was within the correct age range. Y'all, this is Akhenaten's full-blooded sister. She's Isis and the mother of King Tut. Going back to my earlier point, Isis could not have died and Nefertiti become the new great royal wife. They were the same person, as confirmed by the birth of a son, aka King Tut, that was born to Akhenaten late in his reign with his sister and great royal wife, who also became the pharaoh. And records confirm Nefertiti was his great royal wife this late in his reign. And there was only one other woman, Hatshepsut, that actually became a pharaoh during the 18th dynasty, and this is her mummy. Also, this was after Akhenaten, aka Amenhotep IV, became saved and was ruled under Joseph's counsel. This means that Kemet was ruled under Joseph's religion and moral ideology, including worshiping one God and having one wife. This means Akhenaten would have only been intimate with his wife. In fact, The room that held the concubines during his father, Amenhotep III's reign, was closed under Amenhotep IV, aka Akhenaten's reign, and used for storage. The impossibility of this mummy being Kia, or another one of Akhenaten's sisters. First, let's discuss who was Kia. Her full name was Talukipa, or Taluhipa in the Hurrian language. She was a princess of the kingdom of Mitanni. She was married to Amenhotep III in his 10th regnal year. This means she would have been around 55 years old when Tut was born. She was married to Amenhotep III to create an alliance between the two kingdoms, Kemet and Mitanni, or to continue the alliance between these two kingdoms. Akhenaten did know her and respect her, but she was not the mother of King Tut. We know this for sure because Kia was definitely not Akhenaten's sister. She was from another kingdom, and we now know that King Tut's mother was also the full sister of his father, meaning she has to be one of Queen T and Amenhotep III's documented daughters. One of those daughters has to be this woman, this mummy. Additionally, we know it's not Kia because the mummy's head was bald, so she could wear a crown, and she held a pharaonic scepter in her right hand. Her hands were manicured and decorated with henna, as we know, and a concubine would have never worn a crown, nor had their right hand placed over their chest holding a scepter. This mummified position was held only for kings. Additionally, because the arm was broken off and laid next to her, again, it was CT scanned. And when it was CT scanned, the arms were, the ulna and the radius, the bones in the arm were matched to the other arm, and they were an exact match. They were actually overlapped using X-ray scans, and they were an exact match.
Does the bent right arm found by Joanne belong to Lady X?
The proportions of the bones is about the right sort of robustness, if you like, and also the coloration on the forearm is similar to that on the left forearm of Lady X that is still attached.
Joanne believes the work of the scientists has helped identify a female pharaoh. For her, it can only be one woman.
The completely shaven head, the double pierced ears, the fact that we know from the bone measurements that the right arm was originally in this position. The age could be someone as old as 30. All these things add up to a rather compelling, in my mind, idea that this individual is indeed Nefertiti.
Now we'll review the previous discoveries of the younger lady in KV 35. In 1898, Victor Leray, a French archaeologist, was doing research in the Kings Valley and came across a tomb that's known as KV 35. When he entered, he found a room commonly known as a cache that contained 3 unwrapped mummies, 2 women, and 1 young man. One of the women he thought was a man because its head was shaven. When he examined the mummy that is now known as the younger lady, he found a Nubian wig next to the mummy. He took it with him and recorded his findings. The wig eventually ended up in the Cairo Museum, which is where it was found by Dr. Fletcher. Dr. Joanne Fletcher is an expert in ancient Nubian, aka Kushite, and Kemetic wigs. She read about Victor Leray's findings, and in 2003, she tracked down the wig to the Cairo Museum. Once she tracked down the wig, she found that it came from a cache or a room in KV 35. When Dr. Fletcher received permission to open the cache that holds the mummies and examine them, she didn't inform the head of antiquities at the time, Zahi Hawass, that she didn't inform him who she was looking for. She simply referred to the mummy as Lady X.
To guard her theory, Joanne has spent the last 13 years referring to the mummy as Lady X. She hasn't even told Dr. Hawass who she thinks the mummy is.
The three mummies here is still making mystery and is still making people wonder why they were left here. No one could identify them. Some people tried, then everyone has a theory about them.
Can Joanne find enough evidence to prove her own theory?
After she had a team use a CT scanning machine to examine the mummy, she then presented her findings to Dr. Hawass. He then vehemently refuted her claims, like refused to look into what she was saying, completely denied any of her evidence.
I think this identification of the third mummy to be Queen Nefertiti, it's speculation.
He vehemently refuted her claims, to say the least, okay? At this time, there was unfortunately no genetic testing done on the mummies. However, in 2010, the mummies of Queen T, Amenhotep III, Nefertiti, aka the younger lady, Akhenaten, and King Tut were all tested. All of their DNA was tested. Now we can compare the ancient records to that of the genetic testing. Now, don't get me wrong, Dr. Hawass is responsible for some amazing finds for Kemet. However, the discovery of Nefertiti's mummy is the single greatest find in archaeological history. It's a 100-year-old question where the mummy of Nefertiti is, and better yet, where she even came from. Two questions no one has been able to answer until right now, y'all. Right now. This is the reason why I believe the fact that Zahi Hawass had nothing to do with this discovery at all caused him to react in complete denial. In fact, for many years, he denied several attempts to test the DNA of the mummies at all.
Carefully, the team begins unpacking their precious equipment. Forbidden to perform invasive DNA tests, they rely on the latest X-ray technology.
Scientists who do DNA today, they still say that we need more years to do more to improve DNA method. And that's why I will wait.
Additionally, not only is Dr. Fletcher a foreigner, but she's a woman. And most, if not all, of the major discoveries of ancient Kemet in modern day Egypt have been by men. Therefore, Zahi Hawass would rather bury this discovery, in my opinion, rather than and flat out lie about it before he lets anyone take credit for it. He said himself that the discovery of Nefertiti's mummy would be the single greatest discovery in the history of archaeology. We can now use my theory that Isis is Nefertiti, the mummy itself, and the DNA of this mummy to prove Dr. Fletcher's theory. We can use all three of these. My theory that Isis is Nefertiti, backed by the mummy itself that matches the records that show what she looks like, and the DNA evidence from this mummy to prove Dr. Fletcher's theory. I honestly believe, even with the solid evidence, Hawass will still double down and refute the discovery, but who cares? And we know just because he won't admit it doesn't make it any less true. I mean, he also had this to say.
To Dr. Zahi Hawass, an award-winning, world-renowned archaeologist. His life's work has been dedicated to the discovery and research of ancient Egyptian antiquities. Not surprisingly, his office is full of books on the topic, some of which depict dark-skinned ancient Egyptians. But he says there's an explanation.
No, they were dark-skinned,
but they were not black.
But they're not Negro. Because look at the lips of the Negroes like that and the nose like this. It's not really the Egyptian origin at all. It's different, completely different. And this is why you cannot connect the Egyptian civilization with the African at all. It's different. Or from Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, it's different, completely.
Like, what does that even mean? We'll go into that. We're going to get into that in my Were Ancient Egyptians Africans video. Please look at that whenever I post it. However, the evidence is now overwhelming. And I truly believe he knows that this mummy is Nefertiti. He's very wise and he's smart enough to know. I just believe that he wasn't a part of the discovery, and so he refuses to let anybody else get that credit. Nevertheless, I feel that the Lord actually allowed it to happen this way because the real Nefertiti and Akhenaten weren't even known at this time, which was about 21 years ago. In contrast to this discovery, the fact remains that Dr. Fletcher is indeed an expert in ancient Nubian, aka Kushite, and Kemetic wigs, but it doesn't make her an expert on Nefertiti or Akhenaten. She has no idea that they came into contact with Joseph, which explains the change to monotheism and explains the latter years of Akhenaten's reign, which was overshadowed by 7 years of famine or drought, along with the additional years that the land took slowly getting back to producing. Dr. Fletcher has really just run with the same Eurocentric view regarding this time period featuring Akhenaten.
They'd taken away the traditional gods by year 5, and they'd simply replaced the gods with themselves. The only way, effectively, to reach the art and to reach the gods was through the royal family. You had to worship them, and they would in turn pass on your best wishes to the Aten. Akhenaten had taken away people's belief system and given them nothing real in return.
He's called everything but a child of God. These Eurocentric, quote-unquote, Egyptologists don't know there was an almost decade-long famine in Kemet during Akhenaten's time. Dr. Fletcher doesn't know Akhenaten and Nefertiti past the common Eurocentric view of them as heretics, which is absolutely disrespectful. Akhenaten and Nefertiti did not have a cult. They did not create a cult. They did not create a new religion. They worshiped the God of Abraham. And I'm going to teach you all about the vocabulary of this ancient religion in my Son of Righteousness video and the Kemetic names of God and Jesus video. Please check out both of those. Akhenaten and Nefertiti should be known as they truly were, children of God who allowed themselves to be used by God to save the seed of humanity. Indeed, there were people on every continent by this time. However, Africa was the seat of civilization, like government, education, etc. It was the worldwide seat of power. I say all of that to say this. We absolutely have to give Dr. Fletcher credit for making this incredible discovery. It took her years. It really did. And we have to give her credit for making this incredible discovery. However, we have to look at Nefertiti and Akhenaten as children of the Most High God. We have to examine them using additional ancient records and the supporting archaeological and scientific evidence. Most importantly, we have to understand that the worship of one God in Kemet went well past Akhenaten's time. And I'll discuss that in detail in my King Tut and his rushed burial video, so check that out as well. In conclusion, my theory is that Nefertiti had many names, including Isis, Nefertiti, and Neferuaten. She was such an amazing queen, leader, and pharaoh. She was deified, meaning she became considered a goddess under her birth name as Isis. Whew, I know that was a mouthful, but that's all for now. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to click that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know as soon as I drop my next video. Until next time.